everyone. Dear guests, welcome to the second edition of the EU Tax Symposium, running with the theme The Future of Taxation in the EU, Challenges Ahead and Changes Needed. I'm very excited that this year's event is co-hosted together with the European Parliament and the Council Presidency. The Tax Symposium will span over 2 days. First day taking place today here, and second day tomorrow at the European Parliament. We are welcoming a very broad audience, both on-site and online, representing national governments, academia, business, and the public at large. We have more than 40 members of national parliaments coming specifically for this year's event, and we are truly honored for that. We are welcoming more than 650 people online today and tomorrow, and more than 800 participants online. We are doubling our participation on site, and this is a big achievement. My name is Stefka Jumalieva, and now I'll guide you through some practical information for the event today. So the opening of the event is going to take place here in a few minutes at the plenary, and once it is over, we'll split in 2 groups corresponding to the parallel sessions. There'll be a coffee break between the 2 sets of parallel session, again at the panoramic hall. And make sure you enjoy the view. The end of the Tax Symposium today will be marked by a gala dinner, which is invitation only. We are truly sorry that we could not welcome everybody at that dinner today. However, we made sure that there are multiple networking opportunities today and tomorrow, including dedicated rooms for side conversations, so make sure you make good use of them. There are multiple screens at the venue, which will guide you through the program and its locations. However, if you need additional guidance or you have any other questions, there are multiple host personnel around the venue, so just grab one of them. They're here to help you. During the parallel sessions, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions in person or via Slido. And the Slido credentials will be shown to you on the screen and reminded several times. And here we have them. If you post on social media, please make sure you use our tag, TaxMix 2050, so you'll help us spread the word about the future of taxation. The Wi-Fi code, which you can use to connect to the internet on the day, is at the back of your badge, but you also have a screen with it. I would like to also let you know that a special attention was given to the security of the event, given last week events in Brussels. With this, you're all set for rich and fruitful discussion. And now, without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Gerassimos Thomas, our Director General for Taxation and Customs Union at the European Commission, who will open the event today. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefka. Welcome all of you here, those of you in the room, those of you in the listening room, those of you online. It is a great pleasure to see you here today. I want in particularly to thank Paul Tank, who is sitting here in the first row with me. He's the chair of the European Parliament Subcommittee for Taxation, and he has shown remarkable leadership in advancing taxation policy and debating these issues of taxation in the Parliament. And I am very pleased that we are able to co-host with the Parliament and the Presidency this event this year. I would like, before going into the substance, to thank, however, above all, the DG TaxSud staff and the European Parliament staff, Fiscal Committee staff, and all involved. A lot of work has been put together to prepare this event, not only the logistics of it, but also to write papers, guidance for the speakers, and then make sure that we have the right summaries and the right follow-up, that we get out the necessary input for our future thinking for EU tax mix, for the next Commission, for our engagement in international cooperation. Let me remind you of the DNA of this symposium that only started last year, discussing today how to address the tomorrow's challenges in an inclusive manner. Not only focus on the challenges of the short term, of next year's budgets, but think forward, anticipate tomorrow's needs so that we have a tax mix fit for 2050. So it's in particular the long-term perspective that we have to develop. In the tax area, people are sufficiently engaged in the short term, but not sufficiently engaged in the collective discussion on the long term. So where we start? We start with a follow-up to successive crises. We had the COVID pandemic, who left, an economic crisis. We have the war against Ukraine. We had the related energy and inflation crisis that are still showing these effects. And we have, in Europe, reacted swiftly at the EU and national level and in international cooperation, whether G7, G20, when it is needed. But unfortunately, uncertainty remains large, and it has increased over the last 2 weeks with the events in Israel. So uncertainty and risk management, short-term and long-term risk management, is part of our challenge. Now, as a starting point, where we are, we have managed the crisis, but we have left substantial debt, both in Europe and worldwide, with on average 85% of debt to GDP and ratios above 100% in several member states. So we need to adjust our systems to ensure that, in addition to dealing with the leftovers of the current challenges, we also have to deal with megatrends. We discussed last year, I will not repeat here, but we had a significant emphasis on the importance of demographic change, technological change, and globalization on our tax systems. And we didn't reach in one debate all the conclusions that we needed. These challenges need to influence and need to streamline themselves in other policies, and we need to start using taxation alongside other policies more actively. These megatrends are not a European specificity. They don't only hit Europe. We have our characteristics as an old continent, but other continents of developed economies are also aging quickly. And therefore, we need a lot of international cooperation. I mean, we all know that a remarkable work has been done by the OECD, and the approval of the global tax deal under the Italian presidency, G20, in 2021 has been a remarkable achievement. We were in Europe among the first that we made the Pillar 2 through a directive law in Europe. It starts applying as of the 1st of January of 2024. But this historical agreement, we all recognize this was a major but only a first step in reforming the global corporate tax framework. We are now very close, and thanks to the OECD, Manal is here with us today, and Matthias will join us tonight. We are very close in reaching an agreement on Pillar 1 and the multilateral convention. We have done a lot of work, 99.5 or 0.9 has been done, and we are there. And then we need to build from there. We need to discuss how we build from there. But it is not only about direct taxation. There is another area of taxation in urgent need of additional global cooperation: sustainability, environmental sustainability. The new initiative of the OECD under the Inclusive Framework for Carbon Mitigation Action brings together all relevant policy perspectives and a large number of countries with diverse range of policies, even more diverse than we have in the traditional direct taxation area. And we're looking at the OECD leadership on this, but also the link to the Climate Club and the International Energy Agency. We have managed at the G20 level to link them all together. This is also a remarkable achievement, that within 2 years we managed to agree on how these international institutions, with EU support in all cases, will work together and to tackle this challenge. Now, in this room and in Europe, you all know that taxation is primarily a national competence. And this is very well recognized. We deal with parts of it But I think it is important in this tax symposium also to have a reflection of what can be done nationally. This symposium is not only, what can we do in Brussels. It's about what are the challenges in the tax mix that you discuss in the national parliaments, you discuss with your regions, you discuss at the local level. In many countries, there is a discussion between the level of taxation. Is certain taxation better done at local level or at the national level? And I think this is important. We do have an instrument to coordinate it at the European level through the semester, and we have seen on the country-specific recommendations over the last 4 or 5 years that we did make recommendations on the tax mix, on the administrative burden, on the clarity and fairness of the tax system, not from the point of view of legislating, but the point of view of avoiding issues with the internal market and making sure that our economies are working. We also made recommendations and made funding available at EU level on the request of the member states to invest in technology. Digital technology, and we will hear in several panels this afternoon, provides new opportunities to make taxation systems simpler, to make taxation systems fairer, and avoid tax fraud. So technology is another area that we can pool our resources together at an EU level. Some of these things also at international level, but certainly some coordination at EU level. And tomorrow, I think we will tackle important issues of competitiveness and fairness. These are often the stereotype is that competitiveness and fairness are opposing each other, but I think I hope that we will hear tomorrow that they are not. It's not necessarily the case. They can reinforce each other, and this is an important debate on the tax mix and competitiveness that will allow us to look at the very important issue of European competitiveness vis-à-vis other parts of the world, but European fairness vis-à-vis other parts of the world in a complementary way. So every year we try to improve. Last year we have a one-day symposium. This year we have 1.5 days. Apart from doing it together with the Parliament and the Council, we also have parallel panels. So we have 4 panels. I think we will engage. This will allow us to engage in important subjects, and this will allow you to participate. So for me, it is very important that you engage. This is not a conference by which we will only listen to somebody speaking. It's a conference where we will have panels, and every panel that will take place, it will break twice for Q&A. This is open for the people here. It is also open for people on the audience. So the pre-prepared remarks, they will serve the initial of the debate, the initiation of the debate, but it is very important that you engage on this. Thank you very much for joining us here. I now have the pleasure to invite Vitor Gaspar. He gave the opening last year. He gave the opening this year. I mean, we have to have the perspective from outside here in Europe, benefiting from his European and international experience and expertise. And we have to listen to start our reflection process with your wise words, Vitor. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks so much, Gerassimos, for your kind words of introduction. Many thanks to the organizers for inviting me to deliver a keynote to the EU Tax Symposium for the second time in as many years. I don't have a long time to address you, so I will be going by the indications from The Economist that already in the 19th century said, if you want to have impact, first simplify, then exaggerate. That's what I'm going to be doing. A year ago, I looked at the tax mix for Europe. Oops. I should have my presentation on, but let me continue. A year ago, I looked at the tax mix for Europe by 2050. Back then, I started by covering 150 years of tax history in 4 minutes. I identified 4 major drivers of change: population, technology, globalization, and the increased importance of supranational objectives and supranational public goods. I presented 2 scenarios for the world. One characterized by suspicion, rivalry, and fragmentation, the other by collaboration and trust. There is no doubt whatsoever that the latter scenario is much better for Europe and for the world. A year ago, I concluded with 2 questions. First, what will be the financing model for the EU budget by 2050? Will it be backed by European taxes? Second, how will the tax system fit together at various levels of public administration: global, continental, national, and subnational? My address a year ago was prepared jointly with Ruth de Moy. This year, Shafiq Ebous and Mario Mansour joined the team. As last year, the focus will be on Europe. I've covered this slide, and I covered this slide as well. You didn't miss much, because since I'm Portuguese, you can always look at my hands. Now, let's start by putting the European Union budget in context. What context? This slide makes a provocation. It considers the European Union on par with states and federations in the world. The chart depicts the share of government spending carried out at levels of the administration below the center and GDP per capita. You see an upward slope, which basically means that all other things equal, entities that have larger GDP per capita tend to be more decentralized. But actually, you see that in the chart, very large countries, China and India, stand out. The share of spending at subnational level is much higher in China and India than elsewhere. But please look at the European Union at the top right-hand side of the chart. Even compared with giants like China and India, the share of sub-union spending is in the European Union much higher still. The European Union is, to a very large extent, a union of member states. Of course, in the language of the treaty, is also a union of peoples and citizens. It is here important to stress that in recent years, and Gerassimos made the point a moment ago, the Union has played a stronger role by helping build resilience against common shocks, COVID-19, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the provision of European collective goods and goals: energy transition and energy security, technology, and much else. These trends suggest an increased role for the EU budget in the long run. And that's an argument that I made a year ago. I should qualify and pause to saying that here I'm being superficial to the point of being flippant. These questions that I'm basically passing on are quite profound. To show that that is so, I'm going to use a selective quote from John Rawls in correspondence with the Belgian philosopher Philippe van Parijs. And I'm happy to tell you the broader story of this dialogue bilaterally. The quote goes as follows: "One question the Europeans should ask themselves is, how far-reaching should their union be? It seems to me, that is Rawls, that much would be lost if the European Union became a federal union like the United States. The large open market is the aim of large banks and the capitalist business class. I can't believe that that is what you want. Now, clearly, the question is hard and profound. But for the purpose of this keynote, we must move on. So I will simply assert that a larger EU budget backed by tax capacity will be needed in the horizon of 2050, and then ask the question, how would a EU tax look like? And here, I want to stress that the current financing model of the European Union is over-reliant on national contributions. Further progress towards public finance union points to the need for European-wide taxation. Now, in this slide, on the chart on the right-hand side, we look at existing federations in the world, and we get the clear picture that the corporate income tax, the CIT, deserves a closer look. The CIT is an important source of revenue at central level, and that is justified by the fact that the tax base is very mobile. The argument for Europe is even stronger because it could be argued that large multinational corporations benefit disproportionately from the European single market. That is actually an argument that Rawls used in his quote. Now, if we go and look at what kind of corporate income tax could be a source of revenue to Europe, we have to recognize that the difficulty, Gerassimos, is that there is not yet a common corporate tax base. Nevertheless, in the context of the OECD corporate tax agreement that Gerassimos referred to, the concept of residual profits is defined. Building on this idea, an excess profit tax on EU-based multinationals seems an attractive possibility within the sphere of corporate taxation. The chart on the right-hand side of the slide shows that this tax base is actually quite considerable, and so even a small tax rate could be a non-negligible financing tool to the EU budget. I'm now going to go and look at Europe as a global player, Europe as a potential lead global player. Now, a year ago, I presented this history of taxation, and the last type of tax that appears in this history of taxation is corrective taxation. The concept is based on Pigu's call for making prices inclusive of external effects. The approach can be used to justify the polluter-payer principle. Carbon taxes and other forms of pricing were first introduced in Scandinavia in the 1990s, and the rest of Europe followed. The chart on the slide gives an idea of the distribution of carbon pricing schemes in the world. You actually can see the world at the bottom of the chart on the left-hand side. And since we have 2 dates for the world, you can see that there is progress. Progress is visible, but too slow. The pioneering role of the European Union and European Union member states is clearly visible in the chart if you're patient enough to look at the country labels in the chart. In our view, the EU could advocate a side agreement among large players, for example, China, India, the US, the African Union, and the European Union. But of course, an agreement could take place in other broader fora, like the G20, as mentioned by aspect of this agreement would be a carbon price floor. The revenues could be shared among the countries that would adhere to the agreement. That would strongly benefit smaller, poorer countries. It would help finance investments in adaptation, and it would help deliver on the sustainable development goals. Let me conclude. The role of the European Union is likely to increase in the future. A closer examination reveals that tax instruments are among the most effective means enabling the European Union to deliver for Europe and the world. Thank you so much for your attention.